I've had lots of good feedback about my interactive videos, so I thought I'd do another one specifically on reading comprehension. Many commenters have asked me to do another video on reading comprehension, including Varun Golas, so thank you for all the requests. And what I thought I'd do to make it more of a challenge, because so far I've always got 100% on these. I haven't seen these questions before, but I thought I'd find the longest, hardest reading comprehension passage I could find. So I googled that and I came up with this passage from Magoosh. It's their long GRE reading comprehension sample passage, link in the description. And as always, I haven't seen it before. I think there are 3 or 4 questions associated with it, and we're going to see the answers as I do them. Because this is such a long passage and the questions I assume are going to be pretty hard on it, I may not get all of these right, but you'll see my techniques regardless for approaching longer passages. We're still going to read slowly and critically engage, but maybe not reading quite as slowly as I normally do, just to give you a sense of how maybe we can read 10% faster if the passage is quite a lot longer, but still engaging with it, still having fun, still reading much slower than most people read. As ever, if you find this approach helpful, please do leave a like and leave a comment. I'm always up for hearing new suggestions for new video types. Okay, without further ado, let's read this passage. In Don Giovanni, what is perhaps Mozart's best-known opera, there exist 2 distinct endings, a phenomenon not entirely unknown during the composer's time. 2 endings, but one that invites the obvious question. Why did Mozart decide to include alternate endings for Don Giovanni when he did not do the same with his other famous operas, that one and that one? Great question, right? Why is he doing these alternative endings? Another question, and one is not so obvious, and one not so obvious, is why was Mozart himself uncertain as to which of the 2 endings to choose? He didn't know which ending to choose, as is evident in his corresponding with this dude, the opera's librettist, whatever that is. Okay, so he doesn't even know which ending to choose. What's going on here? This is crazy, right? A common answer is to treat both these questions as one. Mozart was uncertain as to which ending to provide, so he wrote both endings. Makes sense? Such a reply ignores an important consideration. Why did Mozart decide to provide these specific endings? So why did he come up with these endings? Leibard provides a reasonable answer. The traditional ending, here we go, we're going to get an answer, in the sense that it is the one that was popular during the composer's day and continues to be so today. The traditional ending, popular, is clearly more palatable for audiences. So the audiences like the popular ending, the traditional ending. The hero, Don Giovanni, is chided for his libertine ways, and then the cast appears in tutti, whatever that is, bellowing a merry chorus as the curtain falls. The audience is left having a light dose of entertainment, which, after all, was the aim of many of the operas of Mozart's time. Fine, but then what of the tragic ending? So you could guess there was going to be a sad alternative ending. Leibard, trading the sensible for the pat, whatever that is, offers little more than that such an ending reflects the political climate of the day. So it seems this sadder ending reflected the tragic political climate of the day. So those are the 2 endings. This alternate ending, Don Giovanni is suddenly cast down to hell, and instead of being redeemed, the hero emerges from the underworld chastened, and the curtain falls, was interpreted by critics of the day as heavy-handed didacticism. Quite an interesting word there. It means to teach people a lesson. While such a view is not entirely without merit. Okay, now it's getting complicated. I have to slow down here. So this view is from the critics, and they're saying it's too heavy-handed didacticism. So this sad ending is a bit too heavy, And what about this view? While such a view is not entirely without merit. Let's slow down here. So the author is saying this view about the sad ending being heavy has some merit. It's not without merit, as in it has some merit. It's like justified criticism in a way. Mozart ultimately aimed to impart some lesson for his incorrigible Lothario, so the author agrees that Mozart was trying to teach us a lesson. But it still leaves the question unanswered as to why two endings, and what exactly did Mozart aim to communicate that could not be housed in a traditional ending. So the author thinks, yeah, that's a good point, he's trying to teach us, but why still are there these two endings? Last paragraph. One answer, offered recently by musicologist this dude, is that Mozart hesitated at including a traditional ending, feeling that it was incongruous with the serious tone of most of the opera. So that first ending, the popular one, the traditional ending, was incongruous. It didn't fit with the serious tone of the opera. Makes sense. That was the happy ending. Indeed, Don Giovanni falls more under the rubric of opera series than opera buffo. No idea what this means. So Don Giovanni falls more under this rubric than this rubric, the latter typically featuring light endings in which the entire cast sings in an upbeat major key. So yeah, the author's just agreeing that it's one of those serious operas, not the light ones. Da Ponte, however, insisted that forthwith casting Don Giovanni to hell and offering him scant opportunity for redemption would likely leave the audience feeling ambivalent. So it was a serious opera, but the audience might get a bit too sad, a bit too hesitant, confused. Such an ending would also suggest that the librettist had been unable to think of a tidy resolution. Okay, so suggesting another reason why he didn't just want to go for a traditional happy ending. Da Ponte then was not so much against a tragic ending as he was an abrupt tragic ending. So he didn't like the abruptness, the suddenness of the tragedy. Perhaps even Mozart was unsure of what to do with Don Giovanni once he was in hell, and may have even been working out a different ending, using the light ending as a stopgap till he achieved such an aim. So he wrote the light happy ending, but then was hesitating, should I do a serious ending? In that case, the fate of Don Giovanni can best be answered by the fact that Mozart, through debts, ill health, and the composer's obligation to compose works for his patrons, was unable to return to a work that he had tabled. So he wanted to do that tragic, serious ending, but because of money issues, needing the public to be happy and running out of time, and wanted the work to please his patrons, did not return to finish that work, the serious ending that he wanted. He had tabled instead. Really interesting debate and discussion there about the two endings. Quite complicated, as you might agree. I think I've mostly understood what's going on by going relatively slowly. A bit faster than I normally go in these videos, but it is a longer passage, so we have to get through it a little bit. In the context in which it is used, tabled, which is here, most nearly means, let's quickly reread the sentence when they're asking us about one word. In that case, the fate of Don Giovanni can best be answered by the fact that Mozart, through all these reasons, was unable to return to a work he had tabled. He had kind of put off for another day, I think would be the context there. That's also another definition of tabled. It means kind of put it off to finish it another day. In other words, he wanted to finish that ending, but he was unable to return to work on it. Not unintentionally forgotten, toiled over, not really discarded. He hadn't discarded it. He wanted to finish it. Considered is too weak. He wasn't just thinking about it. He wanted to. He just couldn't finish it for all these reasons. Put aside indefinitely feels good. He had to put it aside and wanted to finish it, but never actually could because of all these reasons, indefinitely, without a time limit. I like that. All the others seem wrong. He didn't unintentionally, he didn't forget about it. He did work hard over it, but tabled doesn't really mean toiled over. He didn't discard it. So I like E, quite happy. It does fit with the context as well. So let's see the answer, and it is E, put aside indefinitely. I would say I got that through two reasons. One, kind of knowing about the word tabled, but also the context eliminated the other answers. So I was left with that answer, which wasn't the best, but it was decent. Put aside, hoping to come back to it once you thought of a better ending. Yeah, putting it aside for later. Quite happy with that. Now, question 2. Let's see if we can answer this just as well. The author of the passage would take exception to, would disagree with, all of the following statements regarding Libard's response to the existence of dual endings. So the author would disagree with all of these statements except, so there's one statement here that the author would agree with, Now, because that's such a long passage, I would have to reread that bit. Leibard's response to the existence of dual endings. What was Leibard's response? Leibard's response, if we go up, was, here we go. Always read a bit before and a bit after. Such a reply ignores an important consideration. Why did Mozart decide to provide these endings? Leibard provides a reasonable answer. The traditional ending, in the sense it was popular during the composer's day and continues to be so, is more palatable for audiences. So Leibard is coming along saying he had to do it because the audiences wanted that ending. The hero is chided, and then Leibard, trading the sensible for the pat, offers little more. Fine, but then what of the tragic ending? Leibard, trading the sensible for the pat. Always read a bit beyond to get the context. Offers little more than that such an ending reflects the political climate of the day. So basically, Leibard was saying that he had to do the popular ending, the light ending, because that's what people wanted. That's what the audiences wanted. Now, the author is going to agree with one of these statements. Remember, it's saying the author would disagree with all of these except double negative. It means one of these the author will agree with and the other ones he will disagree with. So let's see which one he will agree with. Always notice that word except. I see many students get stuff wrong just because they didn't notice that word. Leibard's explanations of Don Giovanni's multiple endings are not uniform in their usefulness. I kind of would agree with that just because he praised one of the responses and didn't praise the other, right? So he said one of them was a reasonable answer. This, that the audiences liked it. And then the other one, he was like, Leibard trading the sensible for the pat, like a little slap. Leibard's not really being sensible anymore when he says that it was also just because of the political climate of the day. So sometimes he's praising Leibard, sometimes he's not. So A is looking very good for something he'd agree with. But let's keep reading. Leibard offers little insight into both of the questions posed in the first. That's too insulting. To say he offers little insight? No, because he gave one reasonable explanation. Leibard's understanding of the 18th century audience is flawed, way too broad. We're not talking about all audiences of the 18th century, so we can easily eliminate that. Leibard's interpretation of the tragic ending to Don Giovanni has more in common with that of Lucian than with that of Lorenzo da Ponte. Wow, this is tough. I'm going to have to understand both of those points of view. So does he agree? This guy thinks that it's all about the being popular with audiences. Does that agree with Lucian more than Ponte? Where was Lucian again? Lucian is the balk at including a traditional ending, feeling that was incongruous with a serious tone. No, Lucian isn't really all about popularity. He's about, it just doesn't fit with the seriousness. But the only thing I don't get is how is it agreeing with Lucian when Lucian was saying that he balked, he didn't want to include a traditional ending, which is the happy ending. But then Leibard was like, he had to include a traditional ending because it's more popular. So I just don't get how Leibard has more in common with Lucian. And at that point, I'd have to move on. It's too complicated. I just don't agree with that first bit, that Leibard agrees with Lucian. And A just seems better. But this is really tough. One of the hardest questions I've seen. Okay, Leibard's views, while not entirely accurate, are consistently probing. Consistently probing. Not consistent. That's the one word I disagree with. Because remember, we saw how the author agreed with some of Leibard's views, but not others. So that word consistently wouldn't really fit because he's kind of like inconsistent. Sometimes he says good stuff, reasonable stuff. Other times he says stuff that's not sensible. So consistently probing. Don't agree with that. This is tough. I think it's A, but D is so hard. I just don't like the first bit of it and therefore I'm discarding it. But due to time constraints in the real exam, I would pick A and then move on. So let's find out. Yes. Wow, that was a little bit lucky, I'll be honest, because I didn't fully understand D. I just liked A. And the only clue that A was right is this thing uniform means consistent, right? And Leibard is not consistent, or the author doesn't consistently agree with Leibard anyway. because he has that contrast. At the beginning, he was praising Leibard, saying he was reasonable, and then towards the end of the paragraph, he was like, fine, but what about the tragic ending? Leibard trading the sensible for the pat. I don't even really know the word pat, I'll be honest, but if you're trading the sensible for something, that other thing is not sensible. So you're kind of slapping Leibard and going, you're not being sensible anymore. So there's that inconsistency with Leibard, which gave me the only clue for getting this really hard question right. Notice they kind of agreed that it was a double negative. Take exception means disagree with, but it's an accept question, so the double negative cancels, and therefore we're looking for the one that the author agrees with. But yeah, this was probably one of the hardest RC questions I've ever seen. But there we go. Let's do, I think, how many are there more? It's 2 more. Whew, it's a workout. According to the passage, Mozart's use of a tragic ending allowed him to accomplish which of the following? Let's guess before we look at the answers. According to the passage, Mozart's use of a tragic ending allowed him to accomplish which of the following? Tragic ending. Why did he do a tragic ending again? I guess to fit in with the tone of the rest of the play was one of them. And wasn't it didacticism, like to teach people a lesson? Lots of different reasons. Okay, let's see. He was able to teach a moral lesson regarding wanton behaviour. Yeah, because he was trying to teach a lesson, right? The didacticism. Where was it? He was trying to teach. I swear he was trying to teach a lesson. Can't remember it. Interpreted by critics the other day as heavy-handed didacticism. Aim to impart some lessons. Yes. Okay. He was able to be consistent with the conventions of the opera prevalent during the time. I don't think so. Isn't the traditional one to have a happy ending? I think he was breaking the conventions of the normal opera, so I don't agree with that one. And he was able to provide a resolution that would allow audiences to feel satisfied. I don't think they would feel satisfied because the satisfied is the nice ending, right? The satisfied is him redeeming himself. Wasn't the bad ending where the audiences would feel ambivalent and confused because it's sad, their hero's kind of like gone to hell, and yeah, tragic ending allowed him to... I just don't agree with that. It's like a tone thing. From my memory, without being able to cite any specific line, the tone was that the audiences want the happy ending, not the sad ending. So I don't agree with that. Tough. I'm not 100% confident, but let's see. A only. Woo! You guys got a real insight there into how I think about these things. When you're under time pressure, tone matters so much. And I couldn't even have time to check B and C. I was just like, because I read slowly, I was able to pick up a certain tone that the author had when he was describing audiences and the hero and what Mozart wanted to do and not wanted to do. So when you're running out of time, that sort of subtle contextual understanding is what gets you right answers. Not always going back and forth to the passage. You don't have time. You've got to really appreciate the text. And they give their own kind of explanation here too. Now, there is a question 4, but there's no answer to it. And I don't think you have to go to a separate website. Click here to access this question and the video explanation. So I think this video is long enough for now. I think I'll stick to 3 questions. But again, if you guys like this format, I will do many more such videos on this. It's already quite a long video. I will stick to 3 questions for today. And again, if you like this, I think that last question was really good for giving my thought process. But all of them were quite tough. It was a really tough passage and a long one. And it gives a sense of how I speed up a little bit with the reading when it's a longer passage, but still much slower than most people. Hope you liked the video and see you in the next one.